Oak 93.5. Each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. where we discuss solutions to black communities local and globally. With Brother Escents Divine, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian, and Brother Ausar. Amen. With special guests every week. You can follow Africans United Know Thyself Black Power Radio on Facebook.com/Oak 93.5. Or you can engage in conversation by calling 919-899-9305. Once again, each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on Oak 93.5.
Peace to the elders, the ancestral giants. Peace to gods and goddesses past, present, and future. Peace to kings, queens, and royal families all over. And peace to you, brothers and sisters. You tune into Oak 93.5 FM, Africans United, Know Thyself Black Power Radio, a space to think out loud about history, power, and responsibility. In this session on Pan-Africanism, we will remember from the Atlantic slave trade to the present world order. African people have been targeted, exploited, and yet have always organized, resisted, and envisioned something greater for ourselves. On this journey, we have the Honorable Brother Ausar, man.
Anakasar, a BB for Hodier, African liberation, black liberation, African power, black power, for every black man, woman, and child on the planet. We are the original people. I am the original man. I am a son of Africa. Peace to the listening audience out there. Really look forward to this discussion. Once again, we have, my Jegna, the triple grandmaster teacher, Baba Atmo. So I really look forward to this important discussion.
And we have the Queen, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian.
Well, good morning, listening world. You are in for a treat. I look forward to interacting and dropping the knowledge and the science that will free all mankind.
Yes. And I'm Brother Escents Divine, here to sit in dialogue with our elder and teacher, Baba Atmos, also known as Dr. Elijah Mickel. And you want to come in? Go for it.
Just quickly, as the subject today, I'm drawn to the words of Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah, who says, I am not African. I'm African not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. And follow that with the words of Howard Thurman, who says, there are two questions we must ask ourselves. The first is, where am I going? And the second is, who will go with me? If you ever get these questions in the wrong order, you are in trouble.
Okay. And today we lift up Pan-Africanism not as a slogan, but as a living mandate for unity, self-determination, and African power of our time. Pan-Africanism is a movement rooted in the struggle to reconnect and strengthen bonds among all indigenous peoples of Africa and all people of African descent. It was forged in the fires of Ma'afa and the transatlantic slave trade, and rests on the understanding that unity is essential for our economic, social, and political advancement. And at its core, Pan-Africanism calls for collective self-reliance, cross-border cooperation, cultural pride, true independence, and a global sense of African solidarity that can meet shared challenges with shared power. Baba, how do you understand Pan-Africanism at its origins, and what forces shape this movement into what it is today?
My understanding of Pan-Africanism was the joining together of not only members on the African continent, but African people wherever they were on the face of the planet. Let me say that we are, as Brother Ausar said, the original people on the planet. We go back millions of years, and through those millions of years, we have been torn asunder, taking places that we would not have gone ourselves, and other places where we have gone and waited for ourselves. How do you wait for yourself? You see yourself as the human beings on this planet that made this world what it was before the coming of who Aquia may call those who will be the destroyers. Let me say that what I see Pan-Africanism is as exactly what it says. Pan means all in this case, and Africanism or Pan-Africanists are all of the African people wherever they are on the face of the planet. Let us look at some of the purveyors of the concept of Pan-Africanism, though at times it was not called that. If we began with people like Martin Delany, who began the Back to Africa movement before there was a formation of the new Pan-Africanists. There was Alexander Crummell. There was Edmund Wilmot Blyden, who said that African personality is what we need to understand. And African personality is an understanding of how you evaluate who you are as an African. If we have time, I'll go back and talk about African personality. Then there was C.L.R. James. You know C.L.R. James, who wrote The Black Jacobins. I have a bone to pick with him, but he went on to the ancestors. I used to sit in his class, and he would teach about race and history from a little book called Race and History, and then he would tell me, and all of the rest of us in his class, I'm talking about me because I was there, but he would talk about people like Paul Robeson. He would talk about W.E.B. Du Bois. He would talk about all Kwame Nkrumah, his relationship with all of those. But he forgot to tell me about his relationship with Amy Garvey. But we'll talk about what that relationship is later. And the other thing was, and I know we're going to talk about this later, he forgot to mention, even in his book, The Black Jacobins, which is about the Haitian Revolution, the only pure African revolution where Africans took their freedom by force on the planet. And that's why, from a Pan-Africanist view, we understand why some people continue to denigrate Haiti. And if we don't understand that, we don't understand what comes after the revolution. Again, one of the things about C.L.R. James, even with his Black Jacobins, he forget or failed to give credit to Anna Julia Cooper, who wrote her dissertation on Haiti before he wrote the Black Jacobins. And then there's Henry Sylvester Williams. Then there's W.E.B. Du Bois. I used to think and credit W.E.B. Du Bois for being the so-called diasporan father of Pan-Africanism, even though these others preceding him. Of course, Anna Jones. I mean, we must not forget the women, and hopefully we'll talk more about that, the women in the Pan-African movement. I mean, for instance, in the 5th Pan-African Congress, they were the ones who were supposedly to put together the hospitality part of it, because, you know, sometimes even black men can be patriarchal, even if we're moving toward revolution. So I bring that up because we need to be aware that sometimes we can forget the value and beauty of our women. Fannie Williams, Ella Barrier, Kwame Nkrumah, who is called the Asajifo. That is, he is the savior because of Ghana. If we begin to call our ancestors' names and we study those ancestors, we will understand what Pan-Africanism is. And I did not mention I did not mention Amy Jacks and Amy, the two Amys, who were the wives of Marcus Garvey. And I won't talk about their relationship, but I will talk about the fact that they were Pan-Africanists as well.
Right.
And I think, in my opinion, he would not have been as much of a Pan-Africanist if it not for those two women.
Yeah. Y'all want to add on to Pan-Africanism and how it shapes the world today?
Well, I just know that I think the concept in itself is one that, you know, once we adopt it, we'll understand, you know, the value of being African and how we have to connect and unite globally. I think that it's a lot of challenges with, you know, Pan-Africanism. worldwide, globally, that we have to basically get in order, for the vision to really come true and for us to truly be liberated, independent, and gain power. And some of the challenges I'm talking about are the basically the internal challenges, right, that we face as far as our loyalty to one another, being able to trust one another, being able to raise our consciousness, because it's going to take more than us just saying that we are Pan-Africanists. Right. We're going to have to be Pan-Africanists, and we're going to have to be for all Africans. And in order for us to be for all Africans, we're going to have to stop killing each other. That's one of the first things we have to do in the diaspora and on the continent, because we'll say we're Pan-Africans, but yet we'll kill another African, right? So the concept and the thought and the reality of being Pan-African is that we have to do just as Baba was saying. We have to learn from those who basically started the Pan-African movement and really, pay honor and respect to not only the vision they had, but the courage that they had at this time after coming out of the Emancipation Proclamation. And even in Africa, they were still dealing with colonialism and imperialism, right? So I think that, we learn from our great revolutionaries like Kwame Nkrumah, and we learn from our great master teachers like Baba Akmos, right? Because, once we get on that path to learn who we are, the knowledge of self, and then we'll understand, how we have to move as a people.
Yeah. And Pan meaning all in this case, as Baba just stated. So what brother's saying is stop killing each other. But what we got going on right now, we got so much separation, the old Willie Lynch syndrome, if it's real or unreal, Willie Lynch thing. But a lot of separation. We got people over here that's that's not just claiming that they're not, I don't know how to say it.
Well, if I may, it's basically, it's like Kwame Ture said, right? Yeah. As far as the responsibility of the conscious brothers and sisters, to help those who are not conscious, and not only point out, their unconscious behavior, but try to basically help to educate them, because we understand that we're in the position we in for a reason. Right. So when we don't have the right knowledge, it's because the knowledge is being taken away from us. Not making excuses, because like I had stated on another show, even though we victims, we can't have that victim mentality. Right. We have to have that warrior mentality. Right. So we have to take responsibility and accountability ourselves. And just like in our values and principles of Shetawat Netta, Shetawat Netta enjoins, it is the responsibility of every human being to promote order and truth. And that's the level of consciousness that we have to get back to as a people.
So Baba also just dropped a few names. Many of them I have never heard, and I thought I did pretty good, with learning, and in my studies. But many of them I had never learned. So what I'm getting at now is why do you think Pan-Africanism is not a subject in the Black community today? What has contributed to the silence?
I tell a historical reference. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, founded by Richard Allen and Absalom Jones.
Yes.
The story that is told is that they were members of a Methodist church, and one day in the church that the white people would not let them pray at the same time, and they were pulled from their knees, and they said that we will no longer darken the doors of this church, St. George's, again. The truth is this. Historically, the Free African Society was formed prior to the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And the Free African Society was an insurance agency. And then after an insurance agency, in the sense that you contributed money, and if you lost a family member, you lost a job, you needed assistance, because self-help was the method for African people. Now, remember the names, African Methodist Episcopal Church, because they knew they were who? African. The Free African Society, because they knew they were Africans. Yes. That even in the Masons, the African Masons, the African Baptist Church. Okay, so we knew that we were African. And for many years, everyone else knew we were African. And then at the second or third Negro Convention, the Negro Conventions were being held at Mother Bethel in Philadelphia. They decided that they would no longer be African so that white folks would accept them, because we can't stay connected to the continent and want to be Americans. So we are now colored or Negro. And I've been alive long enough that my birth certificate says colored.
Wow.
And then I was glad to be a Negro.
Wow.
And then I found out I was black. And then I found out I was African and I was free. See, because freedom is not liberation. Freedom is a mental state of mind. So why is it not a discussion? Because we, speaking generally of our communities, want to be accepted. We want to be Americans. We want to be ADOS. We want to be FBA. We want to be anything but African. Because if you connect to the African continent, then you have to be in opposition to the oppression that exists in this country. Africans cannot stand oppression, but Negroes can.
Okay.
Coloreds can, and Americans can.
Yeah.
So, and if you accept the American way, you begin with what is called colonization. Can you imagine? We have fought against colonization on the continent, but the history of this country begins with what? Colonization.
Yes.
The original 13 colonies.
13 colonies. Proud of the 13 colonies.
Yes.
Proud to be a colonizer.
Right.
So that's why we don't talk about it as much as we should, because we are trying to be American, which means we are trying to be white American. We are trying to be accepted.
You know, Baba Atmos, I hear you, and I it's almost devastating to think the levels that we have descended mentally just to survive, because it's not liberation and it surely isn't freedom, but to survive, and are willing to take down our own identity, a true identity, just to assimilate and to be accepted, you know. But we're teaching the children in school now, you know, don't be a bully. Or, you know, we're trying to teach these children we teach these children concepts that we are hypocrites to each and every day. But I'm also reminded of some of my even African friends who come here, who transport here. And it's amazing to hear them talk. And they love to, I think they marvel sometimes at a Negro who has education, and, you know, they're looking at me, and somehow or another, I feel that they have sized me up in a way where they say, we can respect her. Now, one day we were talking, I was talking to one of them, and very close to my heart, she said, well, we speak the Queen's language. And I, you know, you speak what language? You know, we speak proper English, because they had prided themselves on being able to be diverse when it came to languages. So many of them not only spoke their native language, they spoke their colonizers' language, they spoke English, and then they wanted me to know that they spoke proper English. Yes. So again, here we are when you talk about finding ourselves, the African in us. There are pure Africans who don't want to be African. So, you know, I mean, just look at the devastation over time, and having to dismantle all of those, you know, nuances just for us to collectively come together. But it is a must. I can say, after having said those things, it is a must.
So we got to realize how the system is working too, because from the way something I've seen, I forget what I seen in that. I'm sorry, y'all, my stats ain't right. But they say that the Africans, once they're coming over here, of course they don't went through colonization to be able to come into the United States. So I hear that they got to go through some type of programming or deprogramming, whichever one.
Seasoning,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And part of that is to look down upon the Africans that's over here in the United States already. And now you get this another form. Here's that Willie Lynch again. So now you got the people at FBAs. They're like, okay, well, the Africans or the people from the other countries don't like the blacks that's over here in the United States, so we're gonna separate from them again. And this comes into more separation, more dividing, and easier to conquer once we're divided.
Well,
You
if
want
I
to go
may-
for it? Yes.
Yes, because that's an interesting point you make,
Yes.
and it's right on target. Because if we discussed on this show before about Memorandum 46, so
yeah.
that's at play when you're talking about ADOS and the FBA and those of our brothers and sisters coming from the motherland over here, how they're being basically, in a sense, programmed and conditioned to think a certain type of way about us so that we can't unify. So, they work on our minds here to make us think that they don't like us when they come over here, and then they play on their minds, to stay away from us. So we just got to understand it for what it is, and we have to unify under the banner of Pan-Africanism and what it really means. So, a lot of the conditioning, like Dr. Kim had said, is old.
Yeah.
And it's passed down, unfortunately, from generation to generation to generation. And I know that we have to, be patient, because, a lot of, what we're facing is new. Trying to get our liberation back, trying to gain our true identity back,
That's
consciousness, right?
Yes.
Because it's like Baba had explained how we went from being, Africans to being colored, to being Negroes, to being African Americans, right? And understanding who we truly are as African people.
That's
so I
right.
think that, dealing with identity is one of the main things. And when we understanding the dominance, right, that has basically been forced on us, where we have to speak English. It might not be the Queen's English, but it's still English.
That's
Right.
right.
And that's something for us to really think about, right? Because like Kwame Ture said, power starts at conception. So when we start seeing ourselves as who we are, as African, then we'll understand our responsibility to our families, to our communities, to our people, and to humanity.
That's right.
Can I just add one thing? I forgot someone, and I guess the ancestor will come visit me. Henry McNeil Turner.
Yes.
From the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Say that again.
Henry McNeil Turner.
Okay.
Henry McNeil Turner was a bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. He was also the minister at a church in Washington, D.C. when the Emancipation Proclamation was passed in 1863. And watch night, the night that you watch and you wait, so that January 1 is a liberation day. It is not only the liberation day for Haiti, but it is the liberation day for the Emancipation Proclamation being read. Of course, the Emancipation Proclamation was a trick, but they're all tricks. And if we use critical race theory, we understand that Abraham Lincoln only freed those people enslaved in places he didn't control, whatever that means. So we celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation on the 1st. Henry McNeil Turner was also the first or second Union chaplain in the Civil War. Henry McNeil Turner was also the minister who said, God is a Negro. He is also the minister that said, black man, get your gun. He is also the minister that transported our people back to the continent. And he visited the continent many times himself. So Henry McNeil Turner was a Pan-Africanist.
Yes.
Indeed.
That's another name that I have never heard of. Henry McNeil Turner.
McNeil.
I've been hearing about him about the last 6 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but that's something that need to be
Oh, wow, that's powerful. That's powerful.
Quick story. My son, he's in the 6th grade, I think. Yeah, he's in the 6th grade. So they doing some African history, and he said he told me he learned about something. He was happy to tell me about them. I think it was at this time George Washington Carver. So a good brother. Let me say that first of all. But I told him to go ask his teacher to, say you want to learn something about Medgar Evers, or even Drew Ali. I threw them names out there because I knew that they would not know where to turn them at. But they said they never heard of them. That's what his teacher told them. They never heard of them. So point I'm getting to is some of this stuff we got to reconnect to. I think Baba said on one episode that we need to, if we we need to be able to communicate with our brothers in one language somewhere, and it shouldn't be the Queen's language. We should have a language that we could speak with our brothers on our own, wherever it be, if it's Swahili or if it's one that we can create right here, right now, Africans United, but we do need to be able to communicate with our brothers and sisters all over, in my opinion, of course.
But let me say this about not knowing certain people. There are many thousands gone.
Yeah.
There are many thousands of our heroes and heroines who gave their all so that we might sit in this space and have a conversation about why we are not carrying their legacy. Many of our children have no knowledge of the sacrifice because they are satisfied with their friendship rings. They are satisfied with living their life in this, I don't want to call it ignorance, but living their life without the knowledge that they have a responsibility not only to live for themselves, but to live for future generations.
Right.
When we came along, our parents had sacrificed so much, even to feed us, that we knew that we had a responsibility to them, never to put them away. At one time in the black community, it was said there were no homeless children. And there certainly were no elders in homeless places.
Right.
But we have lost our way. And in my opinion, it's not because we were not taught. It's because there was no emphasis on values and ethics with us, because it was assumed that all we needed to learn were the other things, because the values and ethics were intuitively known. So if I get back to it and talking about the African personality, there is the epistemology and axiology. Epistemology is how you know knowledge, and it is intuitive with Africans. And axiology are your value systems. And then we talk about the 10 virtues that the brother teaches. And then there's the black experience, which is what you're talking about. Who are these people? What did they do? And do I want to be like them?
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No. That's good right there.
Yes,
That's good.
absolutely.
And you often mention Julian Ann Cooper also, who's from here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Can you explain the role she played in the Pan-African Congress and the broader Pan-African movement?
Okay, first of all, she attended the first Pan-African Congress and was one of 2 female speakers at that Congress. Anna Julia Cooper, as you know, attended St. Aug, and one of her battles at St. Aug was that she wanted to learn the same curriculum that the men learned, and so she had a fight for that. She did her doctoral dissertation in her 60s on Haiti. That's why I talked about C.L.R. James omitting to give her credit about that, but sometimes we just don't know. I mean, but he should have known. I mean, he knew who she was. She was also principal of the M Street School in Washington, D.C., which was a black school that trained black children. She also adopted children, even into her later years. The one thing that everyone who has a passport carries is her words. For her words are written in every American passport.
Can you share those words with me, please? Being that I haven't gotten
I wrote them down. I'm telling you, I did. I wrote them down. I would say these were hers, but this I missed early on. For I am my mother's daughter, and the dream of Africa still beats in my heart. That's not her. That's Mary McLeod Bethune. But
Wow.
You see, the people, as you talk about it, that there's so many people who were African in their perspective that aren't seen as Pan-Africanists. Would you believe that Mary McLeod Bethune would say that her mother's vision, her Africanness, beats in her heart? You know.
Wow. That's that drum beat.
That's that drum beat.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the beat of the
You found it.
universe. That's why we are the heartbeat of the universe. A lot of times we don't, recognize.
Well, go ahead and read it for me, sister.
Mm-hmm.
You read writing.
So-
Sister found it for me. You know, that's why we need sisters.
We need
See,
them.
every now and then we come up short.
Listen, I am my brother's helper.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Amen. That's what's up. Well, as Baba Atma said, Anna Julia Cooper's quote is found in every passport, which is honorable. She says, and that quote says, "The cause of freedom is not the cause of a race or a sect, a party or a class. It is the cause of humankind, the very birthing of humanity."
That's right.
That's awesome.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
That's awesome.
So North Carolina goes with you wherever you go in the world.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that is.
Yes.
Raleigh, North Carolina. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Raleigh,
Wow.
excuse me.
Wow.
Raleigh, North Carolina. And the other piece is, how many of us don't know that that's there?
I never knew. Let me say how.
Let me double on that.
Let me
I
say
didn't-
how foreign that was to me just sitting here. Is that I once sat on the city of Raleigh's preservation of cemeteries committee, and we had a duty to go into the cemeteries that were owned by the city of Raleigh and do whatever we needed to bring them up to code, or have an honorable day. And her marker and memorial is right there in the cemetery on the slave side, on the black section, I'll say that. And so they made it a point to make mention of her every time. However, there were African Americans who didn't know, but they knew
Right.
who she was. And that can be very, devastating in itself, that they know who we are, but we don't know who we are.
They put it in our passport. We didn't put it
We
in
didn't
our
put it-
passport.
Right.
And I think it's
That's powerful,
important.
brother.
I think it's important that we, educate our children
Yes.
and community on these facts.
That's right.
Here
Right.
in Raleigh and the surrounding areas in North Carolina and the United States and the world, because it's important. The value, and a lot of times, like how Baba had opened up, with all of our great revolutionaries,
Yes.
pay homage. You know what I mean? Pay homage to the legacy that they left for us to build on.
That's right.
And she left a lot for us to build on. And I think that, when we look at, the position like that St. Augustine's University is in now,
That's what I was-
it's something that can be done if we all come together and do what needs to be done, for the education, of our young brothers and sisters.
Know you're flowing on the same wavelength, because I was just about to talk about the discreditation of St. Augustine's. Of course, I went there also.
Right.
So,
Wow.
yeah, long time ago to me. Well, to some of the youth, not to probably not.
You're ancient, Brother Escents, to the
getting a little
children.
old now, yeah, because it was St. Augustine's College at the time when I went.
Can I give you one more statement by
Yes,
Anna
please.
Julie Cooper?
Please.
And I did mention the M Street School.
Yes,
I
you
did
did.
mention at one point that they fired her, because she was, I would put it in these terms, trying to teach too much African stuff.
Wow.
And so the M Street School eventually became Paul Laurence Dunbar, and it's still in Washington, D.C. She said, "There are two kinds of peace in this world. The one produced by suppression, which is the passivity of death.
Come on.
The other brought about by a proper adjustment of living, acting forces. A nation or an individual may be at peace because all opponents have been killed or crushed, or a nation as well as individuals may have found the secret of true harmony in the determination to live and let live."
Wow.
Sister.
And I would recommend A Voice from the South, which is her book, and you can download it online free.
The
it's
sister was
well worth
powerful and
reading.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say, and then I'll get right back on script. I went to St. Augustine's, like I just mentioned, and I did not hear about Miss Anna Julia Cooper until I think Brother Ausar was the first one I heard it from.
Baba almost was the first one I heard it for.
That's something, right, to say that.
And she has a marquee outside of the cemetery that is right along.
Right across on the other side from the street.
Yes, across the street. I would say on the opposite side of New Bern Avenue, and then there's a side street there, and it would have to come to me.
I think that's State Street.
I think that's
it was
a
further
field trip.
down.
I think that's
For
Right.
the children.
Yeah.
Because historically, like I say, I heard about Anna Julia Cooper first probably about 3 or 4 years ago from Baba Atmos, and I'm pretty sure it's a lot of our brothers and sisters locally right here in Raleigh never heard of them, our children. I think it's something of inspiration,
Yes.
for our children to hear everything basically that she did and contributed to the Pan-Africanism movement, the Pan-Africanism movement,
Right.
the fact that she went to St. Aug, graduated from St. Aug, and kind of basically, in a sense, demanded that she be taught, what the men would be taught, because she had the capacity, as we well know, all sisters had the capacity to learn what the brothers learned. We had
Thank
to work
you.
together and learn together. Right. So I
Yes.
think that, just, her story and her legacy just really basically it will inspire so many of us who have unfortunately given up. Just like what Anna Julia Cooper was talking about as far as passivity.
That's right.
Becoming passive to peace, which is a slow death. So I think it's a lot that we can learn. I'm glad that, Baba almost came onto the show to share the information and the knowledge with us about one of our local giants
Yes.
and heroines.
And please know that the city of Raleigh now has a tour guide for African American matters. It is actually conducted by Carmen Caruthan, the historian that we've invited and will be coming on at some point. But they now have a tour bus that I have been privileged to help put together at its earlier beginnings before I sort of start roaming the world. But yes, please check it out, and it's very interesting.
I'm all for
Very
that.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody want to add anything else about Miss Cooper? I'm gonna go on. Why was the?
Can I just say this?
Yes, please.
What Anna Julia Cooper, Dr. Anna Julia Cooper, reminds us of constantly is that there were women in the movement. And many times when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we can name the men,
Right.
but we have forgotten the women. And what they also had to go through to fight the men that we honor so that they would have a presence.
It's powerful.
In fact, if we look at, well, we're going to talk about the 5th Pan-African Congress, but talking about the two Garveys, the two Amy Garveys,
Yes.
Amy Ashwood and Amy Jocks. We need to understand their roles, and that there would be no UNIA without Amy Ashwood Garvey. But anyway, I just want to every now and then mention the women, because for those of us who've had some light in our lives, we can always go back to one or two women who showed us the path.
Right.
And it's,
Thank you.
it's very important that the queens and the sisters get a chance to know their prominence also, because and I'm not about to go into the hip hop world right now, Dr. Kim, but in the hip hop world right
I'm
now,
silent. I'm silent.
in the hip hop world right now, they doing a lot of they got a lot of female artists out there, and they talking about a lot of damaging stuff that our sisters are intaking right now. So just want to say that. So why was the 1945 Pan-African Congress such a pivotal moment, and what message did it send to the black people worldwide? Baba.
Again, let us go back to Amy Jocks Garvey. There's a letter that she's responding to a letter from W.B. Du Bois, and she gives him information about how to structure that conference and who to invite to that conference. And so when you look at the conference, he gets the credit, as he should, for putting it together. but there would be no conference without her. This conference made a move away from accommodation to revolution and the end to colonialization. And some of the people who were there, for instance, Kwame Nkrumah and Jomo Kenyatta, who became true revolutionaries on the continent. And so we looked at the Fifth Pan-African Congress as a turning point. And in fact, the letter that Amy Jacques Garvey writes to him, she says, don't use the word Negro about African people. They're African. Don't use other kinds of languages that would bring about disconnection. So her letter, if you read it, really puts the glue together. And the conference itself was the turning point in terms of looking to Africa and African independence. She even mentions the African Union in her letter. So it's well worth reading.
Who was the letter to, Baba?
To W.B. Du Bois.
Right. Now, because, I know that in 1945, that Pan-African Conference was very important. But also in 1945 was when the United Nations was formed, right? And it took the place of the League of Nations, which was right after World War II, right? And one of the things basically that they decided at the United Nations, right, was that they was going to rebuild Europe, and they were going to do that through, extracting the resources and minerals and everything from Africa and continuing to explore Africa, because at this time, all of the African countries, except Ethiopia and Liberia, was under colonization, right, and imperialization. So was the 1945 Pan-African Conference also in response, because I know you mentioned about, ending colonization, but was that also in response to the United Nations forming in 1945, Baba?
She did mention the United Nations. Her letter was written in 1944. And during the war, and one of the things that she wished would occur would be that they would have the Pan-African Congress during wartime. And she said in her letter that she was back on the island, and the sword of Damocles was hanging over her head, meaning that she was under threat constantly. But she would take the time to write this letter to Du Bois about putting that conference together. So I think that one of the things that we forget is that in order to organize a conference or workshops, it takes effort. They don't just occur full bloom without the work that's done behind the scene.
That's true.
And so in response to this concept of the League of Nations or the United Nations, he would reach out to her. I mean, I think it's interesting. We spent a lot of time talking about the disagreement between Garvey and Du Bois. We don't take enough time to think about the cooperation when it came to critical matters.
Right.
It's true. It's true.
And so the Pan-African Congress was to be one of those critical points, turning points in the freedom of countries on the African continent to move toward true Pan-Africanism.
Right. I like that.
Yeah,
It's good.
They put their differences to the side to come for the bigger cause.
Right.
Right.
Well, let me just say this, as you all refer to, us as queens, and I certainly appreciate the honor. But, just being a fighter on today's front line for liberation, I can truly say that I can hear in Dr. Cooper's plea to the brethren on how important it was for, even while she was under her psychological or even physical threat from the outsiders, how much I would say damage or the threat it is upon African American women to first of all be acknowledged and to be in the fight and to make sure the fight remains pure. Why do I say remain pure? Because we've seen movements start in one way and then branch off into 1,000 different pieces. And we know when those breakups happen, who is going to feel the brunt of that dispelling? It's going to be women and children. Somehow or another, men can macho back up and, pick up where they left off, but it is women who often are left holding the bag of responsibility. And, there is a saying, and I don't have it on me now, Brother Utmost, because I'm not searching my own stuff, but it was saying that the black woman is the mule of America. That we've had to bear the children, bear the blunt force, and do be reminded that even after, historically, black men could have voted before black women could. Mm-hmm. History shows that women didn't get their rights to vote right away.
No, right.
So even the black male who just come out of slavery still was ahead of the black woman. Mm-hmm. And so those are things we have to consider when we talk about how much pressure or how much of America's garbage have been dumped on the black woman. So just want to
say, and it's still happening, unfortunately. And I'm glad you pointed that out, Dr. Kim, because we have to raise our consciousness, like, to the point where we can see where they are basically create a situation to put our young sisters in. And a lot of these sisters are young.
That's right.
That are having babies, right? And exploit them while oppressing them. Mm-hmm. And then have our young sisters thinking that they're helping them.
It's true.
By, making sure that you don't let no black man live with you.
Exactly.
And I think that we got to get away from that type of thinking wherein it's okay for every other people to have the man in the house, but they don't want the black man in the house.
That's
so
right.
It's a game that's being played against us. It's a game that's always been played against our black women psychologically, as well as our black men, and that's to keep us separated.
Yes.
And we have to unite. Right,
yes.
And we have to have balance, and we have to live Maya, truth, justice, and righteousness, right? And we need to really be able to get out in our communities and help our brothers and sisters to understand the tricks that are being played against us to separate us, so that we will have unhealthy households.
That's right.
Right, that are dysfunctional, right? And that's what we got to get. We got to get back to where we're working together as a unit, the black female, the black male, the black child, where we're one happy family working together and striving for our liberation and power. Right. So what the government does is, what they do is they put like Dr. Kim said, they put the black woman in a bad position, right, and put the burden on her, and then they lock up the brother, which is a double burden for the mother to raise the child by themselves. So I just think that, it's a lot of games that have been played on us, continuing to be played on us. And that's why, the knowledge of self is so important. Reading, right? Becoming literate, and not just becoming literate, but reading the right type of information that's going to empower us and expand our consciousness, so that these games and these tricks aren't played on us continuously, and so that we can change, our community, change the environment, and change the world.
So, brother Kevin, let me ask both you and Baba Utmost, when you talked about the women being in a whole different category of oppression, what I'm hearing also when I hear the Pan-Africanism or even the language of diaspora, we're talking about people who are educated enough to know.
Right, that's good.
When does that knowledge get down into the lower places of our communities? Because what tends to happen, I see, is that those populations are so focused on survival right up in front of them that they never get a chance to see globally, or even they don't see themselves in a greater light, with a greater force, with a greater objective in life, because they are so focused on living in the here and now, the survival. They don't even see themselves beyond a certain point. So how do we correlate that language and move the movement of, or the knowledge of, from the higher places where our educated are known down into the bowels of our lower parts of our community, so we all can rise?
I like that. We take it to the community, and we do like, how Baba brought that great information about Dr. Anna Julia Cooper, right? And we educate our communities on that. We educate our youth on that. We take them on field trips. We expose them to our heroes. We expose them to the knowledge of self, Maya, right? Yes. And we basically help them to get on the path that's going to lead to liberation. We teach them the values and the principles like Baba was talking about. What's that fancy word you use? Axiology. How you say it?
Axiology and epistemology.
Axiology, right? And axiology is which one?
Values.
Dealing with the values. So when we teach the virtues of initiate, control your thoughts, right? Make sure they're righteous thoughts, just thoughts, right? We teach this by teaching on the wisdom teachings, right, which helps with our reasoning. We have to be able to reason. It helps with the intellect. Then the second principle, control your actions, right? Third one, steadfast in purpose. Have a divine purpose. Fourth one, have faith in your teacher's ability to lead you on the path of truth. You got to have a genuine, authentic instructor. The fifth one, have faith in yourself to accept the truth. The sixth one, have the ability to act with wisdom, right? And like Ptah said, you can tell a wise person by their good actions. A wise person's heart matches his or her tongue. When he or she speaks, his or her lips are straight. The wise have eyes to see and ears to hear that which will profit offspring, right? Number 7, freedom from resentment under the act of persecution, which takes a lot of work. But we have to work on it because that value and principle is there for a reason. Number 8, freedom from resentment under the act of being wrong. Number 9, have the ability to distinguish right from wrong. And number 10, have the ability to distinguish the real from the unreal, which is very important.
Oh, yes.
And Baba had shared this with me a couple of weeks ago because it just goes to show how in depth our ancestors were as far as dealing with mental health through the knowledge of self.
That's right.
And because mental health is based off of reality and non-reality, right? And we were instructed to be able to distinguish the real from the unreal. And I think that value and that principle in itself, right, has to be at the forefront of our minds as long as with control your thoughts. Because sometimes what we'll think is real really isn't real. And that's when we start thinking that we are lesser and we are inferior when we're not.
That's true.
So these values and these principles that our ancestors laid down thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago are timeless, right? And when we understand that a lot of our teachings are timeless and are the foundation of all the knowledge that's on the planet, and then we'll realize just the power that we have within us once we understand who we are as a people through the knowledge of self and through Pan-Africanism.
All right. Let me go back into this Pan-African part of it, which it all ties together. And Brother Ausar, you were just touching on this just a few ago about after World War II. But as World War II drew to a close in 1945, much of the world lay in ruins, and there was a public demand for peace and new international order. Representatives from 50 countries gathered in San Francisco from April 25th to June 26th, and of the same year, to draft and agree upon a United Nations Charter. And the UN officially came into existence on October 24th of that year, once the charter was ratified by China, France, the Soviet, the UK, and the United States, and a few other signatories. When those 50 nations gathered to shape a so-called New World Order, independent African states were almost completely absent from the table. Only 4 African countries were present: Egypt, Ethiopia, Liberia, and the Union of South Africa, while the rest of the continent remained under direct European colonial rule. The colonial order was enforced by European empires such as Britain, France, Germany, Portugal, Spain, Belgium, and Italy, whose control over Africa was rested on economic exploitation, violence, and institutional racism. The Security Council of the United Nations, which claims responsibility for maintaining international peace and security, is made up of 15 members. Five permanent, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China, and 10 non-permanent is elected for 2-year terms. So, to the question, start with you, Baba, Utmost. Given their history and present role, will you say these 5 permanent members are complicit in the ongoing exploitation of Africa and its resources?
I would. I remember as a child visiting the United Nations, walking around the building. Of course, they never talked about critical race theory, which gives you an understanding of the fact that sometimes when something is passed that looks good, it may look good but not be good. What do we used to say? Everything that looks good ain't good for you.
You better tell
You
them.
know, and so when we look at the United Nations, what we have there is the supremacy of these predominantly white institutions, China being an exception, over all of the other countries in the world, and excluding the ones that they considered their colonies. In Belgium, there used to be a killer by the name of Leopold. And Leopold said, "Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is to never teach the niggers, quote unquote, to know God. This they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one Namazi, one Nzakumaba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie, and to insult is bad. Have courage to admit it. You are not going to teach them what they already know. Your essential role is to facilitate the tasks of administrators and industrialists, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in a way that it is best to protect your interests in that part of the world."
Oh, wow. Here we are.
Now I have a question, a quick question.
Yeah.
Baba. And is there a connection between the 1884-1885 Berlin Conference and the forming of the United Nations in 1945?
I would connect the dots. Remember, the United States was at and signed the charter, or whatever they called it, but it did not at that point take colonies. We have them now, we being the United States. When you look at the Virgin Islands, you look at American Samoa, they are basically colonies, you know. So the idea of, as John Henry Clark says, that the Europeans made a decision that they didn't care who ruled the world as long as one of them. So when you look at organizations, look at their hidden meaning, look at their hidden power base, who's in charge. As for instance, in the United States, who's in charge? Well, we have a figurehead, but who's really in charge?
Right.
When we look at the power behind the throne, so to speak, we look at who selected the vice president. My understanding, it was the influence of Peter Thiel, who is also one of the oligarchs. And if you read The Dark Enlightenment, you understand the objective of running the country. And it has very little to do with democracy. I mean, that is a feel from your question, but it is really about the question. What is the purpose of the United Nations? It is to give cover to the behavior of certain members in that body, specifically the Security Council.
Right. And also I want to add, Baba, because at this point in 1945, the United Nations, right, there was only 4 African countries basically that was there, right, that had sovereignty, right? So the United Nations in their mission statement as far as protecting the world, my question is how sincere can they really be, being that they still had African nations under colonization and under imperialization? It seems kind of, in a sense, contradictory, you know, basically say we're going to be doing this while at the same time you're already exploiting and colonizing, you know, countries in Africa.
Okay, if I might read one more part of this, I'm skipping. Right. And this is Leopold, who, you know, Belgian, killed 15 to 20 million black people. Right. And sometimes black folk don't even know it. Convert always the blacks by using the whip. Keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in sign of recognition, goats, chickens, or eggs every time you visit their villages. And make sure that the, quote, niggers, unquote, never become rich. Sing every day that it is impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax each week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to build flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system which allows you to be good detectives denouncing any black that has a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach the, quote, niggers to forget their heroes and adore only yours.
Wow. That's...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
If history is not repeating itself, I don't know what
It
it
sound like,
is.
it sound like everything that's
It's
happening.
It's the playbook. It's the playbook. And
Pay your tithes.
yeah, well, you know, the question is, when do we wake up and bug the playbook? Because if it's continual, then when do we get to a place where this is unacceptable? You know, Baba just mentioned how many were 15 to 20 million people. But it doesn't matter the amount. It matters the playbook. Yeah. And when do we get to a place where that is unacceptable for us as a people to be handled in this manner? Somebody.
I think it's gotten to that place, and I would like to, you know, say something I had shared with Brother Escents earlier, and that was, okay, you know, we have our values and we have our morals and ethics and everything like, but I basically use the analogy, a sports analogy. You know how we feel about sports.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, like say, if you got a football game and one team is cheating and allowed to cheat, and the other team is playing by the rules,
Right.
and the cheater is always winning, right? But the one team says that we have to follow the rules, win or lose, right? And I think we kind of fall into that category wherein, you know, we live by Mayat, and we live by our morals and values that others don't live by, right? So they're playing and fighting a different war than what we're fighting.
That's true.
So I think that, you know, learning from history, right, we have to understand one of our greatest powers as Africans is being able to be creative and innovative, right? And so basically what we have to do is flip it to the point wherein our values and morals don't work against us. Right. Because sometimes it can work against us.
That's true.
Right. So we have to understand Maya and reciprocity on a whole nother level when we're talking about, because we had proven, I said this a couple of weeks ago about you know, a joke that Dr. Williams had shared with me one time. The only thing tougher than the black man is the roach, because you know they basically can absorb and withstand anything. The same thing with the black man and the black woman, because they have tried to kill us off. They have tried to destroy us. We got 1.4 billion Africans in Africa. We got over 2 billion Africans on the planet, which is a quarter of the people. So it shows and Dr. Kim don't like this word resilience because she said we're not a rubber band. I can understand it, because we shouldn't expect to be rubber bands. But we are a resilient, strong people, right? So what we have to do is continue to build and grow and continue to learn from our greats, from our ancestors, and also understand that we have a responsibility that The first principle, control your thoughts, right? And the second one, control your actions. So behind the thought has to be action for liberation, for power, for independence, for justice, right? So and then I love going back to Sun Tzu when he said, know three things: know thyself, know thy enemy, and know the environment.
And you cannot lose.
You can't lose with those. And brother, Dr. Kemp was just touching on some history about the European powers, how they closing ranks to dominate and control poor nations. And we were speaking on this. I think all four of us were just talking about this kind of earlier about what's going on today.
Right.
And I had planned to ask, do we see the possibility that the pattern can end? And if so, what must African people and our allies actually do to bring it to an end? But as of what just happened, I think it was yesterday.
Are you talking about in Venezuela?
Yeah, what just
the
happened?
The actions in Venezuela?
Yes, sir.
The actions in Venezuela is basically go along with everything you just read. Not only in Venezuela, but also in Nigeria.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
Where the United States basically dropped bombs in Nigeria, and then they dropped a couple in Venezuela, invaded Venezuela, and captured their president and kidnapped the president.
Right.
Kidnapped the president and his wife.
Yes.
Right. So I think that's a good question that you asking, brother, because the same things that they did in the past, they just did yesterday. So if I may direct that question to you now, Baba.
Which question is that?
The question about basically what can we do to end the atrocities of the United States and other global European powers that has taken place over the last couple of weeks. Just took place yesterday in Venezuela and like a week ago in Africa.
Well, the answer to change, if we listen to Kwame Ture, he says that we must organize.
Yes.
If we don't have an organization, we need to build one. If we have organizations, we need to reorganize those organizations. I am a great proponent of the value of the church community. It is a disorganized community at this time, but if we began, and he said, Kwame Ture also said that women needed to form separate organizations because African men are not fair to African women, so they must organize to disorganize the organized African men. I think like he has a point.
He does.
I think it's also possible to join organizations that are confronting these issues, but it's even I don't want to say easier. It is probably more in line with success if we can reorganize unorganized organizations, i.e., I go back to the church. You're the African Methodist. I'm pulling them because they have stood tall historically with a Henry McNeil Turner and others to say that we are African people. It's part of who they are. And say, and they've traveled around the world. How do we organize them to confront the issues, work with them to confront the issues that are important? I want you to save your soul or spirit, go to your ancestors, but while you're here, can we make it better for our children and our children's children?
Absolutely.
Can we not close the door and go in and praise the Lord and take up a collection or two? Can we do some work? And I'm not saying some of them aren't doing work. A lot of them are doing great work. But the connection. What's the connection? What's the ecumenical council doing? Let me give the one thing that we talk about all the time. How many churches in Raleigh?
Over 600 black churches.
If the 600 black churches all got together and decided that they were going to put their collection in one bank, imagine the power that they would have in working with the community through that bank.
Absolutely.
Of course, many of them will say, I'm still going to stay with the light-skinned bank because they're good for me.
Right.
That's my friend. I sit at the table with them. But if we organize our resources to be resources for our community, what can you do in the city? And if you have an excuse for not doing that, it's because you don't want to.
That's right.
You know, and so if we take that not only locally but nationally, because some of these organizations, I'm calling them organizations for the purposes, have national membership, have international membership, work even in Africa. You know, they go build a little school, build a hospital, all of those things, build some wells. All of those things are necessary. But if you do it in a collaborative effort, like a United Nations, the United Churches working for African people, what was supposed to come out of the Pan-African Congress, a Pan-African Christian Muslim, because I don't care which one you bow down to, the purpose is to save African people, wherever they are on the face of the planet.
That's right.
The thing that we didn't take advantage of was the decade of people of African descent and the diaspora. That decade was announced by the United Nations, and so many people didn't even know it occurred for those 10 years, from 2014 to 2024.
Yeah, I have another question, Mike, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about, the current events, not only in Venezuela but Nigeria, and really, this really can go to either one as far as the United States, and really, I want to kind of look at Africa for a minute, for a second, because, as an African, I feel like wherever we are on the planet, we should feel a certain type of way about the United States or any other country just going into Africa and feel like they could drop bombs and say they're doing it to save Christians or whatever reason they give. Because you can't imagine no other country coming over here to the United States dropping bombs talking about where they say that they're killing Christians or that they're killing Muslims, right? So for them, the United States, and really, I'm really looking at our consciousness as well, here in the diaspora as well as on the continent. Because it seems to me like we have accepted the fact of colonization and imperialism, and that's just the way it is. They can come and do anything they want, and we ain't gonna be able to speak too much about it. I think that type of mentality has to stop. I think that, we have to see ourselves, right, on a very high level where people don't feel like they can just do whatever they want to do because it's Africa. Just like the way they, basically, control, a lot of the government, with bribes and money and things of that nature. We have to take responsibility ourselves as well as far as being accountable. Like, PLO Lumumba says that, the leaders are crooks. They're thieves, right? And so when I'm talking about accountability, right, we have to hold not only the leaders accountable, but the people accountable. We all have to be accountable. And I don't think that we're really being accountable. I think we're doing a lot of talking, and I think we love to talk a lot about the issue, but we're not getting serious, wherein when you see a violation at the United States, that's a serious violation. Right? Not only of human rights, international rights, whatever, and the international laws and things of that nature come from the United Nations. And the United States is part of that Security Council, right? So it's a lot of hypocrisy that's going on. And I feel like us Africans here in the United States, we're in the belly of the beast. We are in the belly of the beast. Those in the diaspora, the belly of the beast. Those in Africa, the belly of the beast is in Africa. And we have to get them out of Africa. And I think that we have to get strong in our positions. That's why, we often talk about being an African revolutionary warrior, right? And that's having that warrior mentality, and that is to defend and protect, but also it's to study, research, build institutions, right? Create a union. It don't have to be the African Union, but create a union in Africa that's going to be for the people. And I think that that's exactly what is happening in the Sahel region with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, which, you know, a lot of people have said that's part of the reason for the strikes in Africa, right? But I think that for the United States, it's a show of power that we can go and do whatever we want when we want. And I think we have to reject that totally as
absolutely.
an African people, wherever we are on this planet. And the same goes for, you know, what they did in Venezuela. What they're doing is basically trying to show their might. But we need to show our might in our consciousness by rejecting everything that's going on and standing up and challenging a corrupt system.
Let me ask you a quick question, two-part question real quick. What role can African people, black people over here play in getting a grip on the resources, or you know, just on the resources that they're so much fighting over? What role can we play to help, you know, to get a grip of that?
We can play a major role all over in the diaspora, right? We can play a role right here in our community first and foremost. Is what we need to do, and that is to help our brothers and sisters understand the power of learning, the power of the knowledge of self,
That's
the
right.
power of raising our consciousness, right?
That's
And
good.
it can have a wildfire effect where it spread like wildfire, and that's how we have to push that knowledge out, because we have a lot of power here in the United States that we haven't tapped into. Right, with knowledge and a lot of other resources that we have, we ain't even tapped into it where we can pull ourselves together and work together here.
Right.
So we got to work together here. We got to work together throughout the diaspora, and we got to work together with our brothers and sisters in Africa. Chaos and confusion is what the Europeans love to create,
Yes.
because that has you in a state of mind where you become discombobulated.
That's right.
But remember in the story of Ausar, Escents, and Haru, when Tahuti told Haru that the reason why you're not able to defeat Set is because you're fighting the fight that he's fighting. You're angry. He said, remain calm.
Yeah.
Because when you remain calm, you can think.
Think.
So when you're a warrior, it don't mean that you're out of control, but you got to be a conscious thinking warrior. And it's not just a physical battle. It's a mental battle, and it's a spiritual battle. So it's a whole lot that we can do by changing our consciousness. Because the one thing that the European always tried to control more than anything, and that is our minds.
Right. Yeah.
That's so true.
So second part of the question is, what role are we playing in keeping the Europeans in power?
Oh wow.
That's a really good question.
That's good.
And you know what? It's so good. I want to pass it on to Dr. Kim.
Jesus. Oh wow. That's a good question. Absolutely. Well, first of all, they keep us complicit because, first of all, we comply to the lie. And the lie is that we are part of the United States of America. United States of America was a stolen it was founded upon corruption. And somehow or another along the way, they've courted us and been a part of that corruption. This land is my land. This land is yours too. Now you are an accessory to crime. You're an accessory after the fact. And you know, any other time we would see it like that, but because they have done such a marvelous job of marketing, which is one of the power sources of creating false narratives, even now. You will have some people looking at what happened to Venezuela and think, yeah, he needed to be taken out. He was a bad dictator. How many dictators have we seen along the way that they've dismantled out of their own countries because they've convinced the people that these were, you know, Gaddafi and
They were criminals.
they was criminals. War, you know, so
But the president got 34 felonies.
Right. Okay. Good. See,
Whoa.
the propaganda is real, and let me say this: when the Allies, America and his power friends, tried Germany during the Nuremberg trials, one of the things that they tried was the Ministry of Propaganda, because it had a whole lot to do with war.
That's right.
And we forget about how quick we go to sleep off of propaganda. First of all, we have to close our eyes and our ears to the lie so that we can reflect on what is true. And I think it goes back to Brother Kevin when he talks about within those 10 frameworks of
10 virtues.
yes, of 10 virtues of knowing the difference between what is real and what is fake, or just knowing truth from a lie.
right.
We have to be diligent and adamant about countering that lie, and to a place where the truth is what stands, and the lie is what is the alternative. Now the lie is so prevalent, people don't know the truth from the lie, and I think Malcolm X said it best, that after a while we'll be looking at the truth calling it a lie and the lie calling it a truth. So we have to be diligent, especially those that are educated, to break those pieces of bread back and give to the Lord, run it up the flagpole. I think we're really too quiet about the lies that are there. We're just way too quiet. I worked with an attorney, and he said, Kim, the name of the game to what you all are, when you talk about justice, is very simple. When they serve you something, you serve it back. He said what really happens is they serve us, and we let it stick. We let the lie stick.
That's good.
And so we don't dismantle the lies fast enough. We actually get caught with a pile of BS. And before you know it, we smell, we look, and we almost imitate and welcome the behaviors. So it is time for us to cry loud, spare not.
If I may, right quick, one thing Baba Atmos had spoke on was organizing, right? And I really like what Kwame Ture said, when he said that people are always talking about, well, black people can't organize because of the differences of, philosophies, ideologies, or whatever. But he said the one thing we can organize around is truth. Which
That's
is
right.
What, Dr. Kim was just speaking on. And that's the one thing, that we do need to organize around is truth. And also when Dr. Kim pointed out, as far as the question, right, is, why do we play into a system that oppresses us? We are complicit into our own exploitation, trying to run from the pain. All of these are psychological. So when we get to talking about those of us who are educated, remember what Carter G. Woodson said, the miseducation of the Negro. And a lot of the people he was talking about was those who were basically educated. So it's not that they're not educated, miseducated, but when you're educated and you have the ability to learn, you not only have the ability to learn the false, but you have the ability to learn the truth. And it's your choice. And I remember I was studying, and I ran across somewhere it said that, people don't require no proof for a lie, but they require proof for the truth.
All right.
Oh wow, that's a good one.
That's good.
And this goes 360 because it goes right back to what we were speaking on a little bit earlier in this session. I was speaking about my son in school, what he's learning out there. So is it a thing of not knowing? You think our people just not know, or we just don't, or we just closing the turning the other cheek to it?
Well, it's like we choose not to know, and I want to kind of
That's good.
we choose not to know for a number of reasons, right? And this takes me to a conversation I had with Baba last week. And Baba, if you don't mind, if you can help us out as far as how basically you were saying that their focus a lot of times isn't so much of us not teaching our children the truth, but them denying certain things for their children not to know.
That's right. I'm listening, and the word that keeps rotating in my head are conditioned to be complicit. But in response, and I could say, from the cradle to the grave, that conditioning occurs.
Yes.
It occurs in the toys that we buy our children. It occurs in the television programs and the music.
That's right.
And the things that we say are of value. That they began to be complicit with a society that says to them, this is the best that it can be. And that everything that you see on the continent, since we're talking Pan-Africanism, is a negative. I mean, I remember, it's not so much now, it's done subtly. I remember as a child, whenever they did anything about Africa, they'd have a white man in a pot with black men running around with bones in their nose, and say, "This is Africa for you." So I mean, now we have movies about negative things in Africa. We have negative things in our community. So we hate our own brothers and sisters because we have been made to be complicit in that conditioning. In terms of why they do what they do in terms of the educational system, because that system was designed to make us into, quote, good citizens. And what is a good citizen in a slaveocracy? A good citizen is someone who promotes the slaveocracy.
That's right.
I mean, we can talk about the 13th Amendment. We can talk about all of those kinds of laws that we have not done a critical analysis of that keep us enslaved to a system that denigrates us. I'm coming to you, Bomber. I'm coming there. I just need to walk around this path. Path a little bit.
Go on the walk, Bob. Go ahead on the walk.
And you know, I'm dragging a little, but I'm coming. I'm coming to you. And so when we look at how they condition us, we sometimes recondition our own.
It's true.
We don't challenge a system that has given them that thought process to think that what they do is right for them and that they have no obligation to future generations, just as they should not honor past generations. You too old. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And again, you know, I want to immerse myself in somebody else's culture because my culture is not what they accept. They said, "Oh, you should look at these kind of movies. You should look at this kind. You should eat this kind of food." They get us with the food too.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, I had never seen so many Chinese restaurants outside of China. I've never been to China. They don't have any because they're all here.
They all here.
You know, anyway, so Martin Luther King said, "To passively accept the oppression is just as evil, makes you just as evil as the oppressor." Now, what does the oppressor do? What does the oppressor do? The oppressor wants to keep his and her children in a position where they see themselves as superior. Mm-hmm. So any information that they get where they have not been superior is a detriment to those children. We think they're trying to keep our history from us. They can't keep that history from us because we got grandmas and granddads and great-granddads, and they're going to tell us the truth. But they can keep that history from them because they're not going to tell them anything negative about the history of whiteness.
That's right.
And why do you have whiteness? Whiteness is a sense of political and power. That is what it is. White power versus black power. Black power was created in response to white power because white folks decided I would no longer be French and German and English. I'm going to be white. And so we'll come together in our whiteness and control all non-white people. And so what African people tried to do through black power, because black was not a description of us as a race. It wasn't because race, there's only one race, it's the African race. And everybody else is either more African or less African. What brother called them was pink Africans. But be that as it may, 3,000 years ago, there were no white people. I read this article that said the Europeans were dark, which gives you an understanding how they could come into the continent and learn how Pythagoras and those others could come into Kemet and be taught because they looked just like them. And then they got light. But that's a different story. We're not talking about the epigenetic development of whiteness. What we're talking about is the evil development of a culture. Not necessarily the people, but if you buy into the culture, you do the same thing as the culture. That's why when we look at some people that look like us, all our skin folk ain't our kinfolk because they have bought into a different culture. They run off and get them somebody to sleep with that look like them, other folk. I'm not saying you can't sleep with anybody you want to. You can sleep with a gorilla, as far as I'm concerned, if you into that. But my point is this. If you decide to do it, are you taking you or are you giving you?
Ooh, that's
What
great.
comes out of that bedroom isn't necessarily us. But let me digress back
No,
to
no, no,
what the
that's
brother
good.
asked
That's
me
powerful.
about teaching. As a teacher, you want your child to learn about who they are and whose they are and how they got where they are and where they can go without a burden, without oppression. And so if I believe that, other folk believe that.
Yeah.
And we sometimes, in my opinion, get confused and think other folks should think like us. And if we think other folks should think like us and they don't, then we are angry about them taking care of their own. And we
That's true.
neglect our own because we are so angry at them. That anger, what is number 7, brother?
Freedom from resentment under the act of persecution.
Number
We are
7.
being persecuted.
Yes, we are.
And resentment doesn't help. But planning
Got it.
the counter to the counter
That's good.
is what we must do.
Yes.
Now,
Anyway, I digress.
Now, Baba, you made a mention about culture. When we accept that culture, basically when we become acculturated. In your estimate, would you say that sometimes can or oftentimes lead to what can be perceived as self-hatred
Yes.
and working against our own best interests by accepting a foreign culture instead of accepting our own?
That's good.
Oh, exactly. And we began to look for that culture in the people we associate with. We began to see other people in a negative light because we do what they used to call in psychology and probably still do projection. We project onto them what we feel about ourselves and say, well, they don't like me because I'm short. They don't like me because I'm tall. They don't like me because of the way I wear my hair, as opposed to I don't like me. It's okay not to like yourself, but it's not okay to keep not liking yourself. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying there are things well, that ain't true. I was going to say there were things I didn't like about me. Ain't no sense in carrying it too far. You know what I'm saying? But there are things that we all in our life find that if we could control it, we would change.
Right.
But that's okay. That's why I'm saying it's okay at times not to like certain things about yourself. But then look in the mirror, as John Henry Clark says,
right.
if you need a friend.
Yes,
Because that
good.
friend is always with you.
That's
Yes, sir.
right.
Even babies knew that when they were afraid of the shadow until we
Yeah.
told them, that's you, baby.
Right.
And then the baby said, that's me.
Yes.
Yeah, baby, that's you.
Yeah.
Look just like you, don't you? You know. So
then
the
we
point
tried to play
is
with it.
this.
Yeah.
The point is this. If we project our self-dislike, our self-hate onto other people, then it's very easy for us not to like our community. It's very
That's
easy
true.
for us
That's
not
true.
to like African people
It's true.
and find
It's true.
other people should, if I, as they did in the second or third Negro Convention, if I give up my Africanness, they'll like me.
That's true. That's true. Because we have been taught, for centuries that Africa is bad. And the pictures, again, we're talking about propaganda and marketing, how that projects how we look and see ourselves, quote unquote, and it debases how we think about our own intelligence.
Right.
And how we trust each other. If it ain't white, remember that quote? If it wasn't white,
It
it
ain't
wasn't
right.
right. So a brother could have just as much intelligence, but if he was saying it, it wasn't accepted. It would only be accepted if a white person has said it. And so that's what we are. So then again, we don't trust each other in business. Well, the black man gonna try to get over. He gonna break my car, and then he gonna try to fix it. We have had so many, people of excellence, people who built the pyramid, is now looked upon. Don't take any of your work to him. We've actually internalized the lie about who they say we are, which is furthest from the truth. And that part, you like you said, and I'm looking for my notes here, how we plan to counter those lies is how we get back in the game. And it's important. And, we talk about Venezuela, but what I was looking at some of their, who they are as a people. And that very president, Maduro, I believe his name is, back in March, they started asking, even as early as back in 2024, they started demanding that the United States pay back reparations to Venezuela, as well as Spain and other colonial powers. They came for U.S. over Citgo oil, that they need to pay back for that. And they also came after Spain and another colonial worker, and I think it might have been Portuguese, but saying that they need to repay. And they included the Africans that were transported from Africa to Venezuela.
Right.
So here we are, a year in almost, of them demanding openly reparations, and voila, just so happened now he's captured. And like you said, kidnapped. Wow.
Dropped the bomb on me. Gap band, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
I think that was talking about the bomb that was dropped in
Tulsa.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to respond to something that Baba had said earlier
Yeah.
about the black church and their ability to. I think that's really powerful, and I like the fact
was.
that he kept talking about the AME, like, and that being as a place of organizing and bringing people together, and the church is very good with doing that, right? So basically, they say control your thoughts and control your actions. So we want to put this thought into action,
Yes.
right? Because we are affiliated with, an AME church, and I think that that's a good place for us to start. Talking about, what can we do to help our communities, help our young people. Let's really focus on literacy.
Yeah.
Right. And, of course, once we get them to read it, we won't get them to read the right material that's going to lead to the knowledge of self. But I'm glad that Baba, because he's been pointing it out to me for years, that the church is something, and there's over 600 black churches in Raleigh, and you ain't going to get all 600. But we get who we can get and work together and work as a unit to improve the conditions of our, brothers and sisters, dealing with literacy, healthcare, dealing with all the important issues, right? And it don't do nothing but take time and commitment for us to put these things into action and improve our communities. And like I say, we do a lot of talking, but we believe in action.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to go to work. We're going to contact, some of these churches and basically start building, because there are a lot of things, and I'm going to be honest, and I know this because I know black people. I've been around us a long time, right? And that is that when black people see something that's good and good for the people, right, they will be a part of it. Yeah. And I think the pastors have a lot of influence on their congregation. And if we can get the pastors to see the value that we can bring to the community, the congregations to get right behind it. So, I just think I'm thankful, that Baba Atmos is constantly pointing out things that need to be pointed out, so that we just don't basically hear it and not hear it, but hear it and act on it.
That's good.
Well, thank you for that. And I heard you talking about ease on down the road, because it is the foundation of working with people who have not chosen to do certain things together. You can't run in and ask them to move their money like I did,
right.
But you're talking about easing in and working together on things that they're willing to work on. And then at the next level, see, I love the black church.
Right.
I mean, Lerone Bennett talked about that the annealing heat that transformed the Baptist and Christian church into an African-based church, because most of them have some Africanness in them. And you know the ones that don't, African folks stop going,
right.
That's true.
So you got to understand that it is in our spirit to work in those communities. And those communities, I take 5 good sisters and I can build me a church.
Right. That's right.
I mean, that has been the foundation.
That has been the foundation, yes.
And I love going to sit in the churches and listen and hear, the ancestors speak through the brothers and sisters.
Amen.
But I think that there's work to be done, and that work is overdue. And they have done so much. We would not be where we are today if it were not for those institutions.
That's right.
So I honor them.
Yes.
I definitely
That's powerful.
definitely had that question on my mind about what other institutions, but once Baba started speaking on that church situation, I was like, I'm gonna leave that question be. I want to ask one more question. We down to our final 5 minutes. So I want to ask about this contradictory or hypocrisy. So how would you describe this when the same powers that write the rules of the international order are also the ones most willing to break them, especially regarding the UN and the Euro states that dominate it? So,
The rules are not written for the membership. The rules are written for those who observe the institution. Organizations write rules all the time that they have no plan to implement. If you read the rules, you can get stuck unless you observe their behavior. What is it that they are doing? That is, thinking, doing. What are they doing? What are they really doing? And what does it mean? So what they're doing tells you what they want. And writing is pretty. I like writing. I like to read writing. Sometimes I write writing. But writing in and of itself, if it does not turn into activity, will lead you down the false path.
It's true. It's true. Well, you think about the indigenous people, of whom they broke over 500 treaties with. You actually conducted writing a contract with people who don't even really speak English. So how hypocritical is that? I often like to use the term "before the ink turns dry." Why? Because before the ink turned dry, they were already breaking the rules, and they had no intentions of following them in the first place. So I think for us, some of these words like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. But the truth of the matter is they have not been able to uphold anything that they put on that paper. Now, when we're going to detach and become human is the question.
Okay. Brother.
Oh, well, I asked the question earlier with Baba about, is there a distinction between legal and justice? And he said, yes, most definitely. And it is. A lot of things basically that they so-called make legal is just for their own purposes and their own benefit.
Yes.
But there's no justice for other people, just like what's going on in Venezuela, right?
That's right.
And like Dr. Kimmett just pointed out, you're writing something in English, you can't expect the natives to basically be able to understand that. It's just like when they talk about our ancestors during slavery, how they were illiterate. How are you going to be illiterate to something that you weren't taught or something that you don't know?
Right.
Because we are the first ones to create not only language, right, but also writing, right? The papyrus, right? The hieroglyphics or the metanetta, the words of the Neteru, of the Netters. So, I think is, that they use that as a tool to dominate and oppress, like the 1945 United Nations, and they write everything out. They put that together just so they can so-called legally dominate, planet Earth. And so when we're talking about the rules only apply to the ones who write the rules wanted to apply to.
That is
but
correct.
It don't apply to them because, like I had stated earlier, they want to talk about, all the different countries that they invaded, who they say was doing criminal activity, but yet this country voted for a president who has 34 felonies. And I think that everybody needs to really look at that and take that seriously, right? And also look at the foundation of this country, which is a crimogenic country, which was founded on crime. So it's only natural for the president and all the other political figures in the government to be corrupt and to be criminals.
That's right.
The other piece is we don't read the fine print. There is a document, and then there's also a reference to the document.
Okay.
So sometimes it's there in plain sight, but if we don't read it, like in the Constitution, I always go back to the 13th Amendment.
Okay.
If we read the 13th Amendment and say there shall be no involuntary servitude, we jump up and down and scream and shout and forget about accept.
That's self.
Except.
We need to look at the exceptions in all of the written documents. And the idea that organizations produce a document for the public and then in private decide they're going to do something else.
Okay.
That's good.
That definitely was. Now, Bob, I'll be back soon, I'm sure, because it's a lot more to cover all the time.
Yeah.
I just put you on I know, Baba. Just volunteered you back. But just the institutional, because we got to have a conversation on institutions that we need to form and build. Like brother say, we got to get action. We got to put these words in action.
Yes.
And I'm down. Bam! It's 11 o'clock. So as the conversation comes to a pause, the work it points to cannot end with this broadcast. The same European powers that carved up Africa set in San Francisco in 1945 to design a new world, and now dominate the United Nations and its Security Council, still profit from African land, labor, and resources, which means our task is not only to analyze, but to organize, build, and resist. May these questions and the wisdom of Baba utmost deepen our commitment to study our history, expose exploitation and hypocrisy wherever it shows itself, and practice real Pan-African solidarity so that African people, wherever we are on the planet, stand in dignity with collective strength. Remember, proper education always corrects error. Peace.
A BB for Holy A, African liberation. Peace. Awesome job.